Hello, everyone, and welcome to the University of Toronto's School of Continuing Studies Blueprint Career Services Real Talk panel, The Power of Self Branding and Networking. We're so pleased to have all of you here today. And before we have a chance to chat with our amazing panelists and get right into things, I'm just going to go through a few things. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Great. So I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me, that you can see the presentation clearly, and please let us know in the chat if there are any other access needs that might affect your participation. I just want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and it will be shared on our Blueprint Career Services portal, which all of you are signed up on. And also this is available on it's going to be recorded via MS Word, so you can get a transcript of this amazing presentation. So before we begin, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it's been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And as I go through my practice as a career practitioner and the work that I do, I reflect on this, and I continuously do research and seek to find out more information about the history of our land, which really does belong to Indigenous peoples of Canada. Now I'd like to move on to some housekeeping items. So please remember to keep your cameras and mics off during the presentation. Post questions and comments in the chat. Questions will be responded to at the end of the moderated question portion. So the moderated question portion will take place from about 12 until 1, and we'll have a half an hour at the end to answer questions in the chat. If we don't get to all these questions, we will go back and pull these questions out and have our panelists respond to them, and we'll make sure to share those answers on our portal. So you will have your answers responded to. We would also appreciate that you complete our very brief survey at the end of the presentation. And like I said, the session is being recorded and will be posted on our Blueprint Career Services portal. All right, so I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit about all the amazing things that we do here at Blueprint Career Services, because in addition to our Real Talk and Industry Insights panel, we have something called the Clifton Strengths Workshop, which involves an assessment which identifies your top 5 strengths, an amazing workshop that discusses the science behind Clifton's strengths and what your strengths mean, how to use them to elevate your career, and finally a one-on-one coaching session with yours truly to discuss further how your strengths can help you to build your career. And so we all know that it's one thing to have amazing education and experience, but if you don't know your skills, you don't know your strengths, you don't know how to market yourself, you're really kind of stuck. So this is definitely going to help you to elevate your career. We also have the amazing Career Wayfinding Series workshop based on the design thinking principles, in which participants have the opportunity to learn about the design thinking process to design your career. And so this is a very empowering way to approach your career instead of feeling you're at the mercy of these employers who make decisions that you feel like you have little control over. So this really does put you in the driver's seat of your career. And there are 3 workshops or 3 hours each. They're amazing. Again, all of these offerings are facilitated by yours truly. And last but not least, we have Career Nav, our one-on-one career strategist sessions. And these amazing sessions give you the opportunity to discuss some of the challenges that you're having with achieving your career goals. And together we work step by step to develop a specific and achievable action plan. And I have access to amazing resources that can help you to achieve your career goals. And of course, having someone such as myself, a career strategist, on your side, really helping to elevate you and motivate you is so key, as we know, to achieve career success. So for more information, please do email us or go onto our website and sign up. Great. So I'm just going to now introduce our amazing panelists. I'd first like to introduce Jean Chow. Jean Chow is an energetic educator, super connector, and respected business and career coach. She teaches SCS 4100, Fearless Networking, connecting across cultures at our school. In addition to leadership, mentorship, entrepreneurship, intercultural communities, and advanced career management at various post secondary institutions across the GTA. Jean holds a diploma in accounting from Saskatchewan Polytechnic, Asian Studies, University of British Columbia, and a completed certificates in digital marketing management and advanced marketing from U of T School of Continuing Studies. She's a proud recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for her contribution in supporting young entrepreneurs. Jean's a volunteer member at University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies EDI Advisory Council, and she currently lives in Toronto and is working on her first book on professional networking scheduled for publication in fall 2025. So welcome, Jean. We're so happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So looking forward to chatting with you today. And having you here today. Let's move on to our next esteemed panelist by the name of Lynne Everatt. For those of you who are not familiar with Lynne, Lynne Everatt has an MBA from York University, a Bachelor of Commerce from McMaster University, and a BA in English and Philosophy from U of T, where she graduated with high distinction. She worked for 15 years in the corporate world, where sadly, she lacked personal brand, although one of her colleagues thought she was trying to impersonate Lady Godiva. Lynne has written 3 books, one of which, Emails from the Edge, I love that title, was nominated for the Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor and became a Globe and Mail business column. She's been recognized twice as a top voice in marketing on LinkedIn, where she has 200K plus followers. Lynne is currently working on a book entitled MBAs Ruin Everything and Other Stories. Her personal brand is Recovering MBA. Lynne's a self branding cautionary tale. She studied business at both the undergraduate and graduate levels, hungrily feeding off the smorgasbord of learning that business school offered. But when it came to MBAing in the real world, she realized she had made a terrible, terrible mistake. A lover of words, she worked with numbers, an MBA in nonprofit marketing. She ended up in a very for profit pharmaceutical industry. But thanks to some heavy duty reflection that led to a BA from U of T in English that took 10 years of part time study to complete and volunteer work with a women's shelter, she righted the ship. Self branded as a recovering MBA, Lynne doesn't want you to make the same mistakes she did. So she's here today to talk about the power of self branding to attract the opportunities, people, and adventures that will improve your life. Let's welcome Lynne Everatt. Yay!
Coming
Thanks.
to you from a beach in Aruba. No, but seriously, I chose this background on purpose. It's kind of playful, and I want to encourage you to have fun with the whole idea of self-branding.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I love that sentiment. And hopefully throughout this session, we can, I guess, help people understand that networking, self-branding, it can be fun and not scary, because it's all about chat networking and sorry, it's all about storytelling. And I love this is a wonderful start to this. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's go on to the moderated questions. So I have some questions prepared that I'm going to ask our wonderful guests, Jean and Lynne. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. First question I'd like to hear from Jean. Let's start with Jean. Jean, tell us your story and how you became interested in networking and self-branding.
Wow, my story. How about in one sentence? I'll tell you my story in one sentence. Um, I was the entrepreneur in residence for the Toronto Public Library in 2013. Wow, 10 years ago. And I often give back by giving talks about mentorship and entrepreneurship. And in 2016, my colleague, one of the branch librarians, Eva Liu, said, "Hey, Jean, why don't you talk about networking? You're so good at it. It's like right in front of you, but I don't think you know that." And I'm like, networking? Okay. So I prepared a talk, an hour and a half talk about networking, created a little bit of structure. And coincidentally, one of an entrepreneur I had coached saw the poster, and she invited me to talk to her entrepreneurs up in Richmond Hill. She created a poster, and then the assistant dean at the School of Continuing Studies, Chrissy Collins at that time, noticed the poster, and she said, "Hey, Jean, can you turn that talk into a full day workshop?" And that's how I got involved in networking as a more defined skill, because to tell you the truth, it is a little bit ill-defined, but yeah, spread the good word.
Thank you, Jean. That's an amazing story. And what I picked up from that, it sort of sounds like your foray, so to speak, into networking be, was something that
Because
was
of networking.
organic. Yeah, it was just organic because it seems to be something that perhaps, I mean, you seem very naturally um, excellent at. If I can't think of a better word to say this, but just something that you naturally excel at, and folks around you notice that, and as a result, they suggested that you develop that skill and help other people that maybe networking isn't so doesn't come so naturally to. So
Yeah,
that's
I was very fortunate. Yeah, very fortunate.
thank you so much, Jean. And
Yeah, you're welcome.
Lynne, we already had a chance to hear a little bit of your story, and thank you for sharing that with us. It was really fun to share that with everyone. But would you mind sharing a little bit more about your story and how you became interested in networking and self branding in particular?
Yes, I have to say, first of all, Jean, it dovetails nicely into self-branding because somebody told you that you were good at networking. And I think that's a key part of self-branding. It's not something that necessarily comes from within you. Oftentimes, and I'll encourage everyone here to reach out to people in their network and ask them for that kind of feedback and specifically, and I'll get into more detail about the exercise I'm going to give everyone at the end of the session. But just to start off, I wanted to tell you, maybe wondering what is a recovering MBA, and I'll pick up the story from where Anne left off as where I was a cautionary tale. And so I base recovering MBA loosely, and I'm familiar with the big book. This is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Someone very close to me is in the program. And so I use some of the concepts as part of my brand. And one of the key concepts, if you're familiar at all with AA, is making amends. And this session today, this webinar talking about self-branding is actually an amends for me as an MBA. I'm taking a concept that I learned in marketing yourself, and applying it in a positive way to people's lives. So thank you everybody for the opportunity for me to be able to do that. In my writing, I'm writing more about, I gravitate talking about corporate cruelty and the things that make me angry about business practice. So that is, I try to put a satirical fun edge to it. But that again is part of my amends. And true to the AA program, I have a 5-step recovering MBA program for everyone who's recovering from burnout in the corporate setting or just wants to build their resilience in the workplace and beyond. And my 5-step program consists of sleep, step, walking, sweating, reflecting, and connecting. And coincidentally, today we're going to be talking about 2 of the steps in the program, which is really good for your well-being. Reflecting, and there's a lot of that involved in self-branding. But Jean, really, she's talking about what I consider to be the most important thing for your well-being, which is connecting with other people. So I'm really excited to share the stage with Jean because really connecting with others is what life is all about.
Thank you for that, Lynn. That was wonderful. And I really appreciate what both you and Jean were saying about connecting because um, that's what this is about, right? It's about connecting with other people, and we need to connect with other people. It's beneficial not just for our careers, but also for our well-being. And certainly nowadays, obviously, as a result of the effects of COVID and having to self isolate ourselves and everything be online. I mean, we're doing this right now. It can be harder and harder to have those personal connections, but they are they are detrimental for us as we move forward in our lives and our career. And that's, again, that's what this is about. So what we will be discussing today are ways to connect with other folks, and perhaps connect with other folks that can help us to achieve career goals and help us find careers that are meaningful to us. And also, I'd like to just add another wonderful thing I picked up from your story, Lynn, was that I appreciate how you went through this MBA program. You found it wasn't meaningful to you, and I guess seems to me that challenged some of your own personal values. But you've been able to translate it to actually helping people and doing something that brings a lot of joy to you personally and professionally. And so I think that's a wonderful sentiment, and it also makes me think of Jean's story as she started as an entrepreneur. And even though she didn't say that it was something that she didn't enjoy doing, but she was able to transfer those things that she really enjoyed about entrepreneurship to help other people. So both of you have really built your careers from networking and leveraging things that you already are excel at. So thank you for that, both of you. And next, I'm going to ask some very basic questions. Jean, I'm going to ask you this question. What is networking to you, and what does it mean to you? Because I do find networking can sort of be, when I've had chats with clients over the years, I say networking like ugh, and even myself, when I first started my career, I had this image, Gene, of networking as no offense, Lynn, but MBAs being forced into this kind of fake kind of position where they're standing around with dark colored suits and just having to be very phony and introduce themselves very formally. So Jean, what is networking? What does it mean to you? Please help dispel this myth of something I had in my head for a long time.
Anne, I'm going to call you Professor Anne because I feel like I'm in the wrong chair. And my students, if there are any of them out there, they're going to laugh because it's like I'm the one that's asking the question. So what does networking mean to you? But let me answer that. It's quite simple. And I'm going to quote Dr. Brené Brown, who is
Mm,
University of Houston, very renowned for her TED Talk on vulnerability. She says networking, like connection, is feeling seen, heard, and valued. Um, and that word valued, it's been tossed around by some, mainly, I'm not going to pinpoint it, but the tech industry loves to say, you've got to add value. And I'm like, what does that mean? Add value, right? So, the old saying, it's not what you know, well, it's also not who you know. And so my mantra is, it's who you help. So that's what networking means to me. Yeah,
wow.
in a
I
snapshot.
love that. I love that. So who you help, and that really does reframe it. So may I ask then my interpretation of that, who you help? So networking is about connecting with people and finding ways
Yeah,
that you can
listening
help them.
for, yep, engaging, listening attentively on about them, not about you.
So in other words, networking really isn't about meeting with people and talking about yourself nonstop. And having
It,
your quick elevator speech and ready to go and having your resume give it to them.
yeah, it's about
Networking,
building relationships, like quality relationships, making that connection and having quality, long-lasting relationships. Yeah.
and listening really is key to networking. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because when you're I would like to, well, I'd like to argue, I guess argue. I would like to assert that I feel that networking, connecting with people, especially for the first time, especially if you are hoping to get something out of the relationship, I would say, Jean, would it be fair to say maybe 70% of it is listening and showing genuine interest in the person? It's not so much about you and taking over the conversation, or what are your
Yeah, I
thoughts
would
on
I
that?
would even I would even up that to like the 80-20 rule, right? 80-20, not
Wow.
70%, maybe 80%. Yeah.
80%. So you heard it from our resident networking expert, everyone, that networking and building, sorry, let's not use that word. Lots of times connecting with people, over 80% of it is about listening and showing genuine interest. Thank you,
In
Jean. That's
others.
wonderful.
Yeah.
In others and
Hmm.
helping, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. And Lynn, I'd love to hear about what you think and when you how you would best explain self-branding. So what's self-branding to you and what does it mean to you?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to apologize on behalf of all MBAs for bombarding people with elevator speeches. But when I think of branding, and I made my own little whiteboard, I believe you've got it on, somebody has it on the screen. Can you see this, or is this, oh, wait a minute. Anyway, I thought perhaps it would appear on the screen, but I'll tell you about it. It's called ACE Your Brand. It's an acronym. And the A in ACE in your brand is being authentic. So you absolutely want your brand to be who you truly are and how you add value. It's a beacon in a way that attracts people to you because of what you offer. The second, the C in ACE is consistency. And you need to behave in a way that's consistent with your brand, because what it is, it's not just something within you, it's the way you behave in the world and how people interpret that. So consistency is absolutely important. And if it's not authentic, then you won't be able to be consistent. So A is authentic, C is consistent, and E stands for being environmentally friendly. So that means that you want to be in situations where your brand is celebrated, where you feel comfortable, and where your brand fits, where you feel like you fit as a person, because your strengths are recognized, you're using your strengths, and it feels really good. So
Great.
the idea, sorry, just one more
Oh,
thing.
please.
I
Oh,
just want to
please.
make one more plug for self-branding, and what it is in essence is it's a way to attract the people, the opportunities, and the adventures into your life that improves your life. So ACE your brand.
That is wonderful. I love it. And for all of you out there, this ACE, your brand, is shared in the chat, so you can all access that. And this is just such a nice way to help people kind of frame in their head what it means. And I appreciate this idea that with a self branding, it's about being authentic, because I think people have it in their head that they have to put on this persona of and be something that they're not. But I think that definitely people can see right through you if you're being completely phony. I mean, you don't obviously have to share everything, but be your true self. Be your true self, because
Absolutely.
right, like, because otherwise you're going to be going after opportunities that aren't necessarily, you're going to attract opportunities that are not that don't represent your authentic self. And be, you know, being consistent with your message. So this just, it takes practice, and it takes work. So it takes engaging in self, a lot of self-reflection, which I know that we talked about. And I love this sentiment also of the environmentally friendly. It's that one's new to me, but I think it all just kind of ties in so well. And so again, it's in the chat. I would suggest everyone to download it, so that way they have a copy, and even just have it on your screen perhaps as you're chatting with folks, or print it out, so as you're, again, as you're meeting with people, as you're identifying your self brand, it's like a gentle reminder. And the more you do it, again, consistency, the more you'll be able to effectively self brand yourself. And I always like to do a little exercise Lynn. I'm sure probably Jean and Lynn are both familiar with this. I like to go around in a room and ask people to I pick up one object that's in front of them, like a pencil, for example. Like I have a pencil in front of me, and when I ask folks to try to sell this pencil to get whoever's in the room to buy the pencil or whatever it is, a piece of paper, a phone, whatever. And one of the things that we recognize is that, we're being honest and telling you all the amazing things. I'm not lying, but at the same time, I'm really putting my best foot forward. I'm not talking about the fact that lead breaks sometimes and it's actually not environmentally friendly, but just the idea of being consistent, putting your best foot forward and really focusing on what you do best. And that's all part of self-branding. And it takes practice. But you can all get there. So thank you for that. That was wonderful, Lynn. Okay, let's get down to some more nitty-gritty, as I like to say, because this is real talk. Um, so as I'm chatting with job seekers, a lot of folks say to me, "Anne, I'm applying to help hundreds of jobs. No one's responding to me." And then I say to them, "Okay, well, what have you been doing to actually meet people and make opportunities for yourself?" And some of them look at me kind of quizzically, and they're like, "That's not going to get me a job." I don't understand what you're talking about. I've heard of this, but I'm not good at this anyway, and it's not going to help. So Jean, how do you feel? What would you say to someone who says, Jean, this networking and self branding thing it's not going to help me get a job, but how does networking and self branding indeed help you to achieve your career goals?
So I think what you're describing, Professor Ann, what you're describing is what I call the spray and pray method. Send out lots of applications and pray that I get that one interview. Yeah, spray and pray. And I like to break it down into the three no's, which is what I teach at the School of Continuing Studies and also over at Temerity Faculty of Medicine. The three no's are no know your goal, know your networking goal. Like, why are you networking in the context of what you were saying? Networking to get a job or advance your career. The second know is to know your network. So, who's in your network? And we go through a more, and my students who are very logical love this part is the mapping of your network. So, it's very analytical. Who's in your network? Why are they in your network? And the third know is knowing yourself, right? Knowing yourself. And so in knowing yourself, what we teach are the 5 hacks for fearless networking. So the 5 hacks involve showing up, taming your fears. So to overcome the fear of rejection, the awkwardness when you meet someone new. The second hack is sit up and stand up. So sit up because virtual and stand up in person. I can stand up too. So mind your body language. The third hack is speak up. So how to make small talk. Small talk is big, right? Small talk is big. And how to build rapport. The fourth hack is listen up, how to listen fully. And we do this really interesting improv activity to underscore the importance of listening. And then the final hack is follow up, and not just link in, exchange business cards, how to do a meaningful follow up to continue the conversation. So, basically using, and I was born in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, so I like to say using Moose Jaw common sense. That's what it is to tie it up. Yeah.
Great. So, sorry, Jean, these are some wonderful tips. I love how systematic this is too.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a lifelong learner myself. And so I'm going to review these with everyone just as a gentle reminder. But the way that you can use networking to achieve your goals is you show up. You actually, when you make the connection, you do it. You do
You
it. A
do
lot of
it.
people don't.
Right. Just do it. Yeah.
Just do it, like Nike. You tame your fears, which I know can be it's sometimes for
Daunting,
some, it can
very
be
daunting.
daunting. Yes.
Mhm.
And we'll discuss that later. But really, I think I would argue that in order to achieve certain goals, whether it's learning how to ride a bicycle or learning how to drive a car, or
Learning something new.
learning something new, or yeah, it can be really scary, but to achieve the goal that you want to achieve, sometimes you just have to tame those fears and do whatever it takes. And I mean, we do that all the time, right? So that's very important. You sit up, stand up. So be engaged and sit up and be there, be present, don't just show up. And you speak up, so building rapport, small talk. I mean, it may seem like very trivial for a lot of you folks, but this is how we connect with people. I mean, if you think about times that you go to the grocery store, if you're in an elevator and you engage in this small talk, it may seem trivial at the time, but these connections, again, going back to what both Jean, you were saying, and Lynn about the importance of these connections, are very meaningful. And they do help to further that relationship, because you can't just kind of dive in there and ask for what you want. And of course, you have to know how to listen fully. We discussed that. I think we said 80% of these connections are listening, and of course, following up. So finding out ways to continue with these relationships. And of course, you mentioned some other very important points in the beginning, which I skipped, but I can't forget these. Um, be uh, know your goal and know your network. And so if you're not sure what those things are, simply write it down, wherever that looks like for you. If you can write it down or record it, but it's the idea of having this clear vision. And there's so many resources. Oprah, I love you. Oprah believes in this, and it's really helped so many people like herself and Jim Carrey, who famously had was like $1 million check in his wallet.
Yes, visualization. Yeah.
Visualization and having a specific goal is really detrimental to using networking to achieve your career goal. That was a lovely summary, but I want to make sure that Lynn has some time in this, because I would love to hear from you. So Lynn, how can self branding help you to achieve your career goal? Because you're not applying to online postings. How is this actually going to help you, Lynn?
Well, first of all, just let me dovetail again to something Jean mentioned about the small talk. When Jean and I connected, we bonded on the Raptors, of all things. That's probably one of the last. we both we start
They didn't
chatting.
do so well last night, Lynn.
Oh,
Oh, they did not.
it's bad.
We're trying to decide whether they're actually good or bad, and we can't really decide. But they didn't look very good last night.
Still building,
But
still building.
you start to you kind of put your feelers out, and you kind of accidentally stumble on something that you have in common, and you just develop this instant rapport with someone. It's really quite magical. But getting back to the brand now, I want to make really, really clear that I can tell you what my brand is, but you don't have to believe me. Your brand is how you behave. It's just like writing. You show people, you don't tell. That's the cardinal rule of writing, right? So, right. So and just in case there may be some of you thinking, oh, ick, branding. And when you look back on what the origin of the word branding, it comes from cattle, right? We would brand cattle, and it would be painful, it would be searing. So if you're really uncomfortable, if that word kind of makes you ick, think about it as your reputation. It's your reputation in the world, and it is not you have an intention. You set an intention with your brand. However, you have to walk the talk. You have to behave in a way that makes it very clear and consistent that this is who you are. And so people, the way it works in your career is that people start to recognize you as someone who has these qualities, and they're positive qualities. And that's how you establish yourself, you make yourself stand out, is by offering something unique that is based on your authentic strengths. And so to me, that takes away the ick factor, although you can actually take it quite far, and you can see that I'm actually dressed in a way that reflects my brand. You can have fun with it, with your packaging. It's your packaging, and think about it, because you're conveying your brand in everything you do, the way you dress, the way you speak, and fundamentally the way you behave.
Wow, that's it. That was amazing. So it's really helping me to myself to reframe the idea of self-branding, because there is an ick factor. I have an ick factor about it, Lynn, even though I'm in this industry. But the way that you're framing it, it seems it's just something that's very natural. I mean, on the one hand, we work on it, but it's, to me, self-branding is are things that you do well naturally, and just elevating that, and also how you want to be perceived by the world. And I'm even thinking, for example, I remember reading some resources about folks who want to, for example, are working in a position and they'd like to move up to management. Well, even though it sounds very superficial, they suggested that you dress the part. You dress like a manager, because that is how you're going to be perceived. You're going to be perceived as someone maybe who's not just someone who's doing an entry level position, but maybe someone who's a little bit more professional and elevated. That's part of the brand that you're aiming for. But it's also something that has to feel natural to you and authentic, like you said. And really, it's about your reputation. So even without even trying, and dressing up one day, as opposed to maybe being a little bit more casual. For example, it makes me think, Lynn, like, for if you are working in a role and consistently you're the go-to person for anything to do with writing, because that's something that you're really good at, or they know, Lynn, that you're always on time, you're always early for meetings and for engagements, or that you're really good at organizing events. This is all part of self-branding, and this is something that you're doing naturally. But I think it's just a matter of being aware of, like you were saying, your strengths and these things that you do well naturally, and elevating them. And then once you're in front of someone who you have these conversations with, who you're listening to authentically, Jean, and you have an opportunity to share your story, you're able to easily articulate your strengths. And really, your strengths are yourself, are your brand. Everything's connecting. This is all
You-
making sense to me.
Yeah, Lynne and I go really well together.
This is amazing.
It is very, yeah.
It's just all the dots are kind of connecting in my head. And just so everyone knows, just as a reminder, we do facilitate Clifton Strengths. So if you're not sure about your strengths, you can participate in this amazing workshop, just so you know. But thanks for that, Lynn. I love this. Okay. Let's move on to the next question, which I can relate to. It's, even though obviously I'm the moderator of this incredible panel, and in my role I'm in front facing positions, and I do lots of outreach, and I go to job fairs, and you know what, it's not easy for me. So I'm going to ask this question quite frankly. So what are some tips that you have, Jean? Start with Jean, obviously. Who are uncomfortable with the notion of networking and self-branding, but recognize it's important for career development. Because, Jean, I know this comes naturally to you, and I've had the opportunity to chat with you on numerous occasions before this amazing panel, and yeah, it just seems very natural for you. You're genuinely interested in people. But what if for people it's really hard for, they're just naturally introverted? They're not good at small talk. What would you suggest?
Well, you know what? You actually brought up an interesting point about introverts, and networking can be very exhausting for introverts. I think you can see I'm an extreme extrovert, but I have a lot of empathy for those who are more quiet, um, more introverted. And often I hear, Jean, it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting. And you can only take it like a step at a time. So, three quick tips. I just jotted them down. So, remember when you're meeting someone for the first time or someone new, like for example, when I met Lynne, right? I'm not just meeting Lynne, I'm meeting Lynne and everyone she knows. So just picture Lynne, and behind Lynne is her entire network. So that's something that could terrify you or motivate you. So be aware when you're meeting someone new, you're not just meeting that one person, you're meeting their network as well. Um, Second tip, try to make eye contact. It's not easy, depending also how you've been brought up, your culture, not easy to do. And third tip is be prepared. If you're going into a meetup, a conference, and you know you're going to get asked this question, right? So you start off, "Hi, I'm Jean Chow. Nice to meet you." And the reverse, and the very first thing that comes up is, "So what do you do?" Right? So what do you do? And then we've talked a little bit about your pitch. But be prepared, right? Be prepared to say something that invites curiosity, right? So for example, I don't say, "Oh, I teach networking at post-secondary level." So what I say is I'm a super connector and I help people learn how to connect. Very simple. Be prepared and have in your back pocket an insurance question, a go-to question to kind of kickstart your conversation, just in case you need it, right? Just in case you're fumbling for something to say. So my favorite go-to question isn't, "So where are you from?" Right? My favorite question is, "Where did you grow up?" People love talking about where they grew up, how they grew up, and it's um, a good launch into building rapport, right? Where did you grow up? Very simple.
Wow,
So I
this
hope
is
that's helpful. Hope
it,
that's helpful.
it is very helpful.
Easy
Um,
to do, actionable, easy to do.
it's very actionable, absolutely. So I'm just going to summarize some of the tips that you have for folks who this is networking and the self branding can be challenging for. So first of all, when you're meeting with people, remember that whoever you're the person that's in front of you, you're not just meeting them, you're meeting their entire network. And so to be honest, Jean,
That's a lot of people.
it's a lot of people and it kind of scares me, but at the same time it excites me because then I know that this is no, even though this is just one conversation I'm actually having a conversation with a lot of people, and there's so many opportunities. And even though it's really hard for me to make to engage in those conversations, this one conversation could lead to so many other opportunities for me.
Right.
So I love that. Eye contact. I mean, it's very basic, but it is very important. And I agree, it can be very challenging for folks, especially if there are cultural nuances. But this is just,
And then there's this, right?
yeah.
Put it away.
That's
Very
right.
distracting
Technology, move that way so you're really focusing on that
in the
person
moment.
in the
In the
moment. And
moment.
I've really enjoyed having conversations with folks who, when I chat with them, they're able to block out everything around them, and people who, when I'm chatting with them, it's like I'm the only person in the room, but not in a weird way, but in the like, I'm really interested in you. And it's not easy for everyone, but it just takes practice. Be prepared. So and it invite curiosity. So one of the wonderful things, even though it can be challenging, this online thing, and of course, ideally, when you're meeting with people networking, I would encourage you to do so with folks in person. But if you're online, I mean, I could have 10 questions. So for someone who might be nervous about chit-chatting and engaging with people, new people, I have these questions. I have these cheat sheets. I might have post-its, which I've done before with interviews, just like reminders, like take a deep
That's a good
breath.
tip. Yeah.
Because they can't see it, right? So you just put little post-its. Take a deep breath, listen, and smile. I mean, these are very very basic things. And Jean, I thought of something too. I would argue that as an introvert and for folks who have difficulty um, engaging in chit chat and these informal conversations, they're actually probably more good. Oh, sorry, more good. They're probably better at listening. And listening really is key to this and building those relationships. So even though you feel like, oh, I'm really shy and I have a hard time chit-chatting with people, which I've experienced myself. So I'm preaching from the source, but it actually can make you a really good listener. And if most of this networking stuff is about listening and not just about saying, "Hey, this is who I am," they're sold. Um, and of course, I love that, be prepared. So even though I said, "Oh, the elevator pitch," no, no, but really be prepared. Don't shove it in their faces, but just be ready because, like I said, Jean, they're going to ask you, so tell me about yourself. What do you do? Like they'll be curious too. Just be prepared. It doesn't have to be a novel, but just something based on your strengths and your brand and a quick
Absolutely.
message, right? And you can always
Yeah.
practice with someone, professionals such as Jean, Lynne, myself, or someone that you trust. But that's huge. And Jean, one last little thing. I love that question because I remember you asked me this. I thought, oh my God, that's a great question. Where did you grow up? That's fantastic.
Yeah. We all come from somewhere.
Yes, and especially being in Toronto, Gene, such a metropolitan city. I'm sure that you're aware of, the power of this. That maybe, and I would argue, like part of Toronto is that a lot of us are not from Toronto. I'm not from
A
Toronto
lot,
originally. A lot,
right?
probably most of us, like, so you can really get in there. And even if you were born in Toronto, it's like, oh, what neighborhood? And oh, I love this.
Hmm.
I'm gonna use this, Gene. You've really helped me. Putting a big star on this. Thank you, Gene.
Great. Yeah,
Um,
you're welcome.
um, Lynn, Lynn, I would love to hear from you. So, someone that's shy, so for someone that doesn't have an MBA and maybe doesn't have those skills that were taught to them with regards to self-marketing, how do you overcome all of this? What are some tips that you have to share with those folks?
Well, Jean said something really interesting is talk about or draw someone in with curiosity. So you can combine different things in interesting ways uh, and, and different talents. And so I'm an introvert. And it's really interesting because I love listening to people. And you can walk away from a conversation. They think you're a great conversationalist, even though you didn't say anything. Virtually just asking questions. And anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but for everyone, introverts, we all have people that we're comfortable with. And I encourage you to do this one exercise. Take this away from this webinar. Ask people, and there's no limit on the number of people you can ask, but do ask people that you know reasonably well to very well. What 3 words come to mind when they think of you? And as a follow-up, if they didn't know what you did for a living, what would they say you did? And I guarantee, introvert, extrovert, you're going to find out something surprising. Recently, somebody said they thought I was an actor, which is blew me away because I'm such an introvert. It's not at all the way I would think about myself. But if I'm coming across that way, it's just food for thought. So you can take that information and journal about it. And there's a wonderful quote, and I know you're going to ask about resources that comes out of the book called Reinventing You by Dory Clark. And I'm not sure if it's attributed to her. I don't think it is, but she says, if 3 people tell you that you're a horse, buy a saddle. So,
That's
so,
great. I love that.
so seriously, you will go out. I guarantee it. It's like you go out in the world and ask for these 3 words. Something will come up. There'll be a repeated word that may surprise you. And if you are a horse, go buy a saddle. Like really think about how you're going to use this information because it's valuable. It's the way you're actually coming across right now. It is your brand at this point in time. And you can choose to accentuate certain things and de-accentuate, I don't think that's a word, but downplay something else. But it's such, I really strongly encourage you to do this exercise. And because introvert, extrovert, you'll learn something.
Wow, okay. So I want to remember this. So, Lynn, okay, I need to have this. So, if 3 people tell you you are a horse, buy a saddle.
Yes.
Do we have that, everyone? Everyone, please make a note of this.
Yes.
Maybe our
If you
tech
forget
person.
everything else I said, just remember that. The three
Maybe
movers
our
like
tech
a
person
horse by a
by
saddle.
a saddle. If maybe
So
we can
yeah,
get this typed into the chat, tech person, you know who you are. Obviously we have tech support. That's amazing. And I think that would definitely, I think these tips can help. I can see how they would help someone who's an introvert learn how to overcome overcome some of the nervousness that comes with networking and self branding, and connecting with people, because it's very affirming, and it's helping you to um, increase your self esteem. Like, this is who I am, and this is how I'm seen by the world, and I like it. It
yeah,
sounds so silly.
it should go a long way to make you feel comfortable in the networking situations. If you nailed your brand and you're really comfortable, introvert or extrovert, ambivert, whatever you are, you're going to feel very, very comfortable just being yourself and sharing who you are. And also, that back and forth, learning who the other person is as well, because you're just comfortable in your skin.
Yeah, being comfortable in your skin, the self-awareness, and everyone, we have some amazing folks there that are joining us today in the panel. I'm sure every single one of you has a unique and amazing story to share with folks. We all have incredible, unique strengths and stories that have brought us to where we are in the world. And if you're able to nail that down and get the affirmation from other people when you're chatting with folks, you don't you that that confidence will really come through and help you to overcome some of those nerves when you're meeting with folks. And I would actually like to argue, um what is like share one more other thing, that we know that for certain folks it can be really, really tough to meet new people and to network, to even to listen to people folks and engage in the storytelling. But give yourself the space to be alone afterwards if you need to re-energize, because I would suggest honor who you are and taking that space, because everyone's different, and we need to honor that and celebrate that, because if everyone were extroverts, Jean, because you identify me, it would be kind
It'd be
of noisy.
crazy. It would be a crazy world. No, no, we don't want that.
You're really an edgewise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we could also argue we don't, the world full of introverts too would be kind of,
It'd be a pretty quiet world.
too quiet. That's right. That's right, Lynn. So we need a combination of both. And just, I would hope that all of you honor who you are, and that for folks who find it so difficult to get out there and meet people and who are able to do it and overcome their fears, Jean, like you were saying, celebrate it, right? So if you have the courage to have a conversation with someone that you found intimidating, for example, or just it's just tough, afterwards, like, say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna meet with Jean, the scariest person around. No, you're not. You're very inviting. Because she's writing a book. Anyway, but afterwards, okay, even though I'm going to be meeting with Jean and I'm really excited, I'm overcoming this fear, but afterwards, I'm going to treat myself. So it's like, after this, I'm going to, do whatever that is, buy myself
Eat
a
chocolate.
burger. What was that? What would you do, Jean?
Eat chocolate.
Eat chocolate. That's right. Watch some reality TV. Just do some self-indulgence, self-care, whatever that means to you. And we're not talking about, spending a ton of money, but just something that, okay, just need to get through this. And afterwards, I'm going to treat myself, do something nice for me because I deserve it and I'm overcoming this. And so I think that really, really does help. Wow, it's already 1 o'clock. So we're going to take some questions from the chat, and if we run out of some questions, I will certainly go back to some of the just questions that we have prepared there, because there's just so much to talk about. So I'm just going to take a look here. Okay, so I think my first question is the hardest with some wonderful things. So for folks who haven't put questions in the chat, please do put them in the chat right now. So the first question I can see here is from someone by the name of Ethel. Ethel asked, how do you determine the people to approach first? That's a question. That's a good question. In a face-to-face gathering during a networking event. Thanks. So I'm just picturing this, Lynn and Jean. So yesterday I attended this job fair, which was not exactly the best kind of, but anyway, that's another story. But so here you are at this job fair, right? The quintessential networking opportunity. And there are a lot of different folks that you can chat with. How do you decide who to approach first? So Jean or Lynn, whoever would like to answer this one.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, Jean, this is not in my bailiwick. However, as an introvert, I have an intuitive sense. I don't know how to explain it, but I just kind of know who to approach. I just feel like I get friendly vibes from certain people,
Yeah.
and you can kind of feel people out with a question and just see how they respond. And you don't have to make a half-hour commitment, but
So
just
you use your intuition,
I
right?
really
You
do.
base it on,
I really
yeah,
do.
you base it on your intuition. I
And
I was
you some
asked actually by a friend who I won't name, but I received a text saying she was in a networking event and that this is not something she enjoys and she's on her own. And what do I do? And her best friend at the time is her glass of Sauvignon Blanc. And I said, look for someone who's on their own as well. Look for a friendly face and walk up to them because you're both on your own, right? You're both on your own. So seek those people out, and then, but then the next reply is, no, everybody has somebody. Everybody apparently are
Oh.
networking experts. And I'm thinking, gosh, I wish I was there to be your wing person, right? Like if you can, take a buddy, right? Take a buddy with you, right? Somebody who may be your buffer or somebody who can actually bridge that awkward moment for you. But it was a little late because she was already there. And then she actually figured it out for herself. I'm very proud of her. She went to the event organizer. So there you go, another tip. Go to the event organizer and say, hey, what am I supposed to do here, right? Everybody seems to know everyone. And that person was able to be her bridge to meet people at the event.
Wow, those are amazing tips. So Lynn uses her intuition, which as an introvert seems to have done her gone helped her get very far, I would argue, and just get a sense of people who looks approachable, who seems friendly, who sends out that friendly vibe, so to speak. And Jean suggested a couple of things. So Jean suggested similarly, if you're by yourself, find that person who seems friendly and approachable and smiley, who's by themselves. Sorry, that was very important. But if there's no one by themselves, go to the source, the person who organized the events, because they know everyone there and they can connect you with the right person based on your needs. That's really great. Oh, I love
Very
that.
strategic.
Very strategic. And it's very simple. I mean, that's great. So I'm just kind of going through here. Okay, here's a good one. How do we balance talking about our personal life and our professional experience? This is a good question because we're talking about authenticity. And as I've had these conversations with job seekers and I say, share your life story. Well, my life story is I grew up on a farm and I used to clean horses and I'm trying to think of, and I had a really bad habit of running across, like I'm just trying to think like stuff that they don't really, I mean the beginning part actually strangely sounded interesting, but like it's just stuff they don't need to know when really you're there because you want to make that professional um connection. But at the same time, growing up at in a farm, for example, and these quirky stories makes you unique and kind of personalizes everything. And I've had been in that situation where um when I've had interviews and they ask the quintessential question, tell me about yourself. I for a while I tried the approach of I just talk about my professional life. And I thought, no, I'm going to tell them about my personal, not too personal, but where I grew up a little bit.
Yeah,
And then
what is too personal,
right.
right?
And then they said to me, like, because I wanted feedback, we didn't need to know where you grew up. And I was like, oh, I just thought I would ask. So, what do you folks think? It is a very challenging question. How do you navigate between this, what would you suggest, Jean or Lynn? I'd love to hear your feedback on this one.
Lynn,
Should I
do
go
you want to
first?
go or do you want? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll jump in on that one. Uh, the way I look at it, there's a real crossover between personal and professional in terms of what you love. And if you start talking to people about what you love to do, and it will inevitably be human, and it will touch on the personal. You'll make that personal connection, but it will also be professional, the professional side to that. So that's what personally I love to draw out from other people what they love to do, professional or personal, and I love to talk about the things I love to do. So to me, that's a great way to bridge those two worlds that often overlap.
I think I love I love that response, Lynn. And I'm just thinking in my head what this would look like. And I think it's very powerful because again, you're showing what you're really passionate about. And hopefully that does have some kind of professional overlap. Like I love, for example, connecting with people. And in my professional life, I've done this throughout my work. And I love staying active. And I find that really helps to balance it. So there's always a way
So
to
yeah,
kind of straddle that. But please, Jean, yes.
yeah. So let's take that in the interview context,
Yes,
right?
yes, let's hear it.
So, how much do you reveal? How do you reveal that, right? So we talk a lot about in our course, talk a lot about the ability to read the air between people,
Mm.
right? So the nonverbal cues. And in an interview situation, you've got to take your cues from the interviewer, right? The hiring manager, the person who's asking the questions, right? So you kind of test the waters, right? So you say, well, I grew up on a farm. And if you start talking, right, you can watch virtually or in person how their body language is communicating to you, and they will cut you off if you're giving too much information, right? So you've got to be able to read the cues before they actually say, okay, that's enough, right? You have to be able to read the body language where, they're kind of like, you get the sense they're hurrying you, like, finish, can you wrap that up, right? So you've got to, again, listen well and observe and take the cue from the interviewer, right? The hiring manager. And they will guide you, right? They will guide you. But as Lynn said, definitely talk about what you're passionate about, because that is the true you, right? That is the true you. And it comes through, right? You have conviction. It comes through automatically, right? You shine when you talk about things you love to do, but make it relevant to the context of the situation. So for example, if you're at an event, there's a keynote speaker, obviously there's a theme, you're talking to someone new. The good icebreaker is what brought you here, right? How did you know about the speaker? And yeah, you get a sense as you carry on the conversation. Like Lynn said, your intuition is what Malcolm Gladwell called rapid cognition, right? So based on very little data and on your intuition, yeah, your brain works automatically and quickly, get a sense of what's appropriate.
Mm. So I think it is important, certainly relying on your intuition, hopefully getting a gauge from the interviewer whether or not they want to know.
If they want to know more, they'll tell you. Tell me more, right? They'll
Mhm,
be very explicit.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I can see how I mean, this is very helpful, but I found sometimes you can't get a gauge because people have their game face on, you know what I mean? Like they actually, and I've had interviews where I think it's going really well and it's actually
It's hard to read. Hard to read.
it's like they're really good at that though, where they are like they're just like, okay, thank you. So you have no idea. And other times where I thought I've had lots of interviews, um,
But
which
they're trained to be like that because they
exactly
want to be not non-partial, right?
right.
Unbiased. So you sit there and you think, wow, I wonder what they're really thinking, right? They're really good at, right? So yeah, different
Yeah.
perspective. We talk about perspective taking
Oh,
too. So different perspective.
it's so hard. And the worst is, I'm just griping here, but it's true. I mean, this is all relevant. Video interviews where you're being recorded. I don't know if any of you have had these where you're not actually speaking to someone. It's just
Yeah.
a screen. So you can't gauge people's their thoughts, and you can't, it's so tough. But I would say, just it just takes practice. I like how we focus on what we love to do, and you'll kind of understand uh what what the right things are to say. And if you're not sure, because it takes practice and lots of tries and failures and successes. But chat with someone like myself or Lynn or Jean. Do research and just practice. But put forward what you love to do the most, and that will shine through. But it's a kind of complicated question, but it's a good one. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay. So here we go. I'm just looking at the chat. Oh, I like this one. Okay. Interesting. So Saul Ramon Palomino asked, what is a good way to project confidence when your career path goals are not as clearly defined? For example, you have an interest in various paths. I have some thoughts on this one, but of course, I want to hear from Lynn and Jean. What are your thoughts about this? If you're not sure what your career path is, how do you convey confidence? What would you suggest?
Is that the ongoing question in your life? Who am I? What is my purpose here? What is the meaning
Oh
of life, right? So different pathways, different career pathways. I'd be honest and just say I'm in the exploratory stage in my life and I'm doing some research and I'm curious to know. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to be a cardiac surgeon? Yeah, just be honest and just say I'm gathering information and research to make a decision and in this day and age, gone are the days that you work for the same company for 30, 40 years, right? We're like Swiss Army knives. We have multiple careers. Like myself, I don't even want to say, I can't even count them. But maybe I need two hands to count them. But yeah, um, yeah, multifaceted career paths. You don't have to choose one anymore. In fact, you may need two jobs, the rate of inflation, right? So
Oh God.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's great advice. So you can be honest because it's normal. Especially these day and age, people pursue various careers in their lifetime. It's not a straight and narrow path like it used to be. And part of
And that's a
career,
good thing. It's a
it's a
good
good
thing.
thing. I
It's a
agree
good
because
thing.
it makes you more interesting and it helps you to, it's your path.
Long life
And
learning.
yes, that's right, lifelong learning.
Long
Long
life
life
and
learning.
lifelong. You can inverse it too, right?
That's really clever.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's okay. It's okay to have different paths and convey that. And part of deciding what really does provide you with that professional personal satisfaction is exploring different careers, but showing an interest and just being upfront and honest. Lynn, what are your thoughts about this? What if someone doesn't know the career path that they specifically want to pursue, but they're sitting in front of someone and they want to convey that confidence. They want to come across as some lost, hopeless person who has no idea what they want to do with their lives.
I can speak to this personally. You'll always have a platform where you're coming from, things that you've achieved, and you may not be able to project that forward, but you've got a foundation there that you can reflect on to build just within yourself a sense of confidence. But I was just talking to somebody yesterday who's kind of at that betwixt and between part stage in her career, and her advice was say yes to everything. So any opportunities that come up, because you are in that kind of, I don't know what to do, just any opportunity that presents itself, say yes, and it will build your confidence and you will see the road forward, and it will be evident what the next step should be eventually. Have faith. But again, you've got a foundation of confidence, achievements that you can stand on, and then, yeah, just say yes.
I really like that. So say yes to everything. And this is the way that you're going to find the right career path to pursue, and
Yeah.
a foundation of your accomplishments. You just because you don't know what career path to pursue and follow, and again, this is normal. We all of us there are few of us who actually stay in one career for the rest of our lives, but just be aware that be aware of your accomplishments and be prepared to share them with other folks. I would like to sort of be the devil's advocate though. So I
Yeah.
can see how this would this would actually be very helpful in connecting with people for the first time. But I would argue in a job interview, and they said, let's say it's an accountant, and they said, "What really would you see for yourself in 5 years from now?" I don't know. I'm just exploring. I think that would dissuade people from wanting to hire you because they're concerned if they hire you, this person doesn't really know what they want to do. They think they want to try out the accountant thing, but if it doesn't work, they're going to leave us. Well, why should I invest my time and money in them? And so I know this might sound kind of contradictory, but if you're in a job interview, you really have to be very specific with your career goals. And I guess this is where you kind of pick and choose, or even though you don't know if you want to be an accountant for the next 20 years, you don't
Be
have to say
prepared.
that. Be
Be
prepared and don't have
prepared.
to share everything. It's selective. So I'm not saying
It's
lie.
strategic. It's
Strategic. That's
strategic.
right. Strategic information sharing. And so I think that if you're able to do that in an interview, it comes out as a person that's very confident. And even though it's not it's the absolute reality. Again, you're being strategic. So, just
Maybe,
sort of.
yeah. I also have uh, a perspective on that as well, being on both sides of the table, right? Being interviewed and being the interviewer. And I strongly believe that most companies, small, big, when they interview a candidate, they're not just interviewing you for the specific job on hand. They're interviewing you for your growth potential and their investment in you. So if it's a fine line being super specific versus being more of a generalist. So you have to, again, read the air, right? Be prepared, do your homework on the company, see where all the big projects are headed. How would you fit in? How do you acquire more skills? Can they help you acquire new and more skills? Right? So growth potential, personal growth, as well as career growth. So when you're in the interview, you have to think a little bit more big picture as well, right? Why are they interviewing you? Do they see, for example, if you're an entry level, do they see leadership potential? Can they groom you? They're thinking all these things, not just for the job at hand, right? So by exhibiting your curiosity, your interests in growth, right? Always talk about your own growth, um, and align it with their corporate values and your own values to make sure there's a culture fit. That's how you're going to cover most of the bases there.
And I appreciate that perspective, and I absolutely agree with you. So it's not just about showing that you can do the job and that you want that you offer something more, but it's about showing your interest in growing and learning because things
Potential.
are potential because things are always changing and developing, and they want to nurture you to potentially, a lot of companies, depends on the company obviously, but potentially, to help move the company forward and help, and you would be growing in that sense too. So it is kind of like an interesting kind of balance, but you're right. You shouldn't just peg yourself into this, box. This is all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm not going to do anything else. So
Right.
thanks for bringing that up, Jean, because it's true. Just looking at the chat here. Okay, really good comments. I'm just looking for just looking for okay, thank you. Great questions, very interesting. Just looking for questions. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is I okay, this is from Eric. And Eric, I really appreciate your honesty. Um, it takes a lot of courage. So Eric says, I am always feeling I'm not that good, or who the hell am I to talk to people, especially those who are better or higher than me. this this imposter syndrome is killing me. How do you overcome it to improve self-confidence? Wow, this is a really amazing question, and I think a lot of folks, I know I've experienced this where I feel I have imposter syndrome, where I've been hired for positions and I think I don't belong here. All these people are incredible. They have way more education than me. They have, they're more advanced in their interpersonal skills and fortunately affects how I've come across. So how do you overcome this and how do you improve your self confidence so you don't let that imposter syndrome take over? Either maybe Lynn, if you wouldn't
Lynn.
mind
Yeah.
answering this one.
Sure, I'm a master imposter. No, but seriously, seriously, Eric, I feel for you really deeply, and I think it really helps to to acknowledge that we're all winging it to some degree, and we're all kind of in the same boat. We're all human, and please don't feel up like that way. I I can so identify with you, and it's really about finding the things that you're good at and that you love and doing them. And then you start to feel just more comfortable in your skin, and then you don't care. You know what, Eric? People get to the end of their lives and they wish they had not cared so much about what other people thought, and they were true to themselves. So all I can say, Eric, is be true to yourself, and the confidence will come. Everybody, we're all winging it. Just say, just level the playing field. We're all in the same human boat. We're all heading in the same direction.
Thanks, Lynn. So just I appreciate that sentiment. So to remind yourself that we're all winging it and that you focus on things that you are doing very well at, and they wouldn't have hired you if they thought that you didn't belong. So even though you may feel that, those around you, your managers, again, the folks that hired you, recognize that you aren't an imposter. You belong here. And even managers, people in higher up positions, I'm sure they feel that the same way all the time. And I'd like to add one little other tip that I read, because when I was feeling imposter syndrome, I did research. I'm all about research and finding resources. So they said find a friend at the company, like someone that you can really connect with. It doesn't have to be 10 people, just one person that you can trust. If there's that person, because I've been in situations where I haven't found that person, but if you're lucky enough, find a person you can become friends with, and then just make that connections and chat with them, to have go out for coffee with them, go out for lunch with them, and tell them how you feel. And it's likely that they'll come back if it's the right person that you become friends with. You know what? You're not you belong here, and this is why. So having that friend and that support network really helps you with your self-confidence and helps you combat that imposter syndrome. Jean, do you have any other tips for
Yeah,
folks out
I'll
there?
build on that. To find a friend, and I also think that was very powerful, Lynn. What you said, super powerful. Um, I'll build on that. Find a friend. I would say find a mentor. Find a mentor, and they can help you focus on what you can control and what you can't control. And as Lynn was saying, right, you can't control what other people think, right? But you can control how you think. So sometimes we become so self-focused that we need to shift our mindset. And you brought up a good point, Anne, about you're very research oriented. So shift the focus off you and onto others and put on your journalistic researcher hat and ask good questions of other people, right? How did they come to be where they are in their careers, right? And learn from them. But find a mentor. Find a mentor. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful advice as well. Find a mentor. And I know for myself, I don't know about you and Lynn, but having a mentor as I navigate my career has really helped me, and especially when I'm feeling a lack of self-confidence
Yep.
in reaching out to them, they've really helped to boost me again and remind me of certain things that I'm good at,
Yep.
and how to elevate my career
And more than one mentor.
And more than one
Definitely.
mentor if you can.
Absolutely.
And mentors can be anyone. They can be instructors. They can be folks that you meet on LinkedIn. They're out there. It's just a
It's a
matter of having
trust. It's a trust relationship for sure.
trust relationship. Yeah, someone that you feel comfortable with, and they'll really
Trust.
help you along the way. The trust is it's huge. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was such a good question. Okay, I'm just looking through here to see if I have any more questions. Otherwise, I will going through these wonderful questions. Okay, I don't see more questions, but that's okay because I would actually like to ask one final question. So what are some of your favorite resources on the topics of networking and self-branding? I know that we were sharing some in the chat, and a couple of you, um, a couple of you, a couple of both of you, sorry, mentioned a couple of amazing resources. But just like maybe your top three, if that's even possible, what are your top three favorite resources on the topics of networking and self-branding? As you know, to keep the momentum moving along here.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I have only one because it's so comprehensive. You can really Google self-branding and a whole bunch of things will come up. But for me personally, Dorie Clark, Dorie Clark, she wrote a wonderful book called Reinventing You. And within the book, there are exercises that you can do. So it's a real hands-on, a lot of wisdom in that book that goes into a lot more depth than I can go into today. But I found it hugely useful.
Great. So you suggest I really should check that out. Dorie Clark, Reinventing You, amazing resource. I am going to read that. Thank you, Lynne.
Yes, it's a good book, and it's not, it's very manageable.
It's very manageable. It's not a tome, in other words.
No, no.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks.
he's Elon Musk, no.
Thank you, Lynne. And Jean, maybe your top three or one's fine too.
Okay, top three. I'll
Yes.
give you my top three.
Okay.
So actually, you inspired one of them, Anne. You mentioned the word practice often when you were talking. It takes practice. And one of my good friends lent me this book. In fact, I had it for probably a couple of years and I forgot to return it, but I have finally returned it. And it's by Josh Kaufman. And it's about how to learn anything fast, right? The first 20 hours. First 20 hours, as opposed to 10,000 hours that's cited by Malcolm Gladwell to master a skill. Josh Kaufman talks about 20 hours, how to learn to play the guitar, how to learn yoga, how to learn the board game Go, right? So that applies to self-branding, networking, right? 20 hours, that's all it takes. And coincidentally, my course at School of Continuing Studies is no longer a full day workshop. It is a 21-hour course, 3 hours for 7 weeks, all on the topic of networking. So that's my second top resource. And my third one is, in class, I would ask, how many have you used a dating app? And everybody be like, why does she want to know that? So then my next question is, have you used a networking app that works like a dating app? And not typically LinkedIn, because in a dating app, you prepare a profile about yourself. And then through their algorithm, they will match you with potential people to date. So a networking app works in a very similar fashion. So one of my favorite networking apps is Lunch Club. I think I left that with, yeah, there you go, Lunch Club, where you prepare a profile. And then a reverse hack that I would share is what I would write in my profile are things that I'm interested in, career coaching, networking, but I also put in there things that I don't know very much about, like machine learning, AI, and I get matched with people, software engineers from Oracle in New Jersey. And I have the most delightful conversation. So what Lunch Club does is they ask you at the beginning of every week, are you free to meet someone new?
Oh
If
my
it's
gosh.
yes, they'll match you with a profile with someone who will what time of day and when you can meet. They'll set up the Zoom encounter, and you have 45 minutes to meet with someone new. So I've met people from Rice University who are career coaches, Utah State, people whose interests not only in career coaching, but they are art auctioneers, right? So you meet the most intriguing people. So that is a really good networking app that I use often. Yeah.
I think that sounds so intriguing. TheLunchClub.com, everyone, all these resources are in our chat. Fascinating. And I'm going to say, I wasn't planning to do this, but I would suggest one resource from that for everyone regarding networking. Design Your New Work Life
Oh,
by
that's a good one.
Bill Burnett and
Yeah.
Dave Evans. It's
Yeah, I heard them speak.
amazing.
They're great.
I was actually lucky enough to engage in the coach training from them. They were
They're
there.
really great. They're
They
good
were
guys.
incredible, wonderful guys, and that you can get the Design Your Life and also the Design Your New Work Life. There are two books, but the second one, obviously, New Work Life, is more applicable to careers. It's a step-by-step guide, and for folks again who are interested in something more interactive and engaging, sign up for a career wayfinding. It's based on the Design Your Life series, but an amazing resource. They're best-selling books and just step by step, and again, it takes away the facade of, oh, networking, it's about no, it's not like that. This is about exploration. It's about storytelling and much more. So on that note, we are out of time. It's 1:31, and that was incredible. I feel like I learned so much. I
We
love
covered a
chatting with
lot.
I learned so much with just having this incredible chat with both of you. I mean, it's been incredible, and I'm so appreciative for all of you out there who have joined us today. And the fact that you came out, that's a huge first step to achieving whatever career goal that you have. So thank you, everyone. Check out Blueprint Career Services for more of our amazing offerings. And I'd like to extend a wonderful thank you to Jean Chow and Lynne Everatt for being such incredible panelists and for their honesty, their information, for everything. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you all.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
us.
Lee. I
Thank you,
took lots of
everyone.
notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye-bye.